Hey, and welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to look at the mist pass. Now, remember I mentioned the mist pass a bit earlier, and the mist pass is actually something that will help a lot with integrating some of your 3D objects into your real world scene. Now, most scenes in real life, you can see a mist or a haze almost in the distance. Like if we look at the mountains at the back, you can see they are completely behind like a haze or a mist. And you can kind of see even these trees here in the background, they're also quite hazy. And then as we come forward or closer to the camera, you can see less of that hazy effect. Now we can use the mist pass that we rendered from Blender to kind of simulate or match that mist gradient or that haze gradient going from the camera and further back to the furthest point in your scene. So let me show you how you can use that. So I'm going to drag in the rendered EXR sequence again, and I'm going to place it on top of our comp, and let's add the extractor effect to that layer, and this time we're going to select mist. So you'll see there's one that says scene and mist. Click on that, and then you will get something that looks like this. So let's just solo this layer for a second, and I want to look at the alpha if I toggle the transparency here. And you can see currently this doesn't have any alpha because the mist layer again does not have any alpha information. So we just want to use the alpha from the scene combined again, and then we get an alpha layer like this. So now you can see we've got all the objects in the scene again, and they've got this little gradient on them. So what we can do to adjust this gradient, we can add a levels adjustment to that layer, and now you can use these two sliders to adjust that gradient. So we're going to use this as a matte in a few minutes to kind of place that haze over our rendered object. So all you need to know is anywhere where these objects are fully black, so if I bring this black value up, anywhere where it's black, it won't have any of that haze or mist, and anywhere where the objects are completely white, so if I bring this in like that, these objects are the furthest away from the camera and they will have the most haze. So obviously most of our objects are quite it's not too far away from the camera, so we don't need a complete black and a complete white value, because the complete black the complete black value will be closest to camera and the complete white value will be furthest away, kind of where the mountains are in our footage. So I'm going to leave it on default for now. We can kind of play with that and adjust it as we go along. So I'm going to unsolo this mist layer. Let's just rename this to mist pass, or you can call it mist matte as well, because it's actually a matte that we're going to use. And we're just going to switch this layer off for now. So we're only going to use it from in another layer. So just hide that for now. And now we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to choose solid. So it's just going to be one solid color that we're basically creating now. Now this is going to be the color of the haze or the color of the mist. You can either click on the color and you can choose a color manually, but it's sometimes better just to use the color picker and choose a color basically from your scene. So maybe something here in the background like a light blue, something like that, and click OK to confirm. Now you can see we've got that color completely over our footage, and let's just rename this to mist. And now we're going to use this matte to control the density of that layer. Alright, so all we need to do is make sure you switch that off. On the mist layer, we're going to choose a track matte, and we're going to choose the mist pass, which is this one. And now we want to set this not to alpha matte, but to luma matte. So we want to use the brightness of this matte to control basically the amount of haze. So now if I take the opacity, if I press T to show the opacity of the mist pass, I can kind of play with that and see. If I reduce it slightly, you can see kind of the mist effect that it's doing. Like all the objects that's closest to camera, if I just zoom in here a bit, You can see they don't have any haze or mist over them, but you can see these objects further away have a little bit of a haze over them. So obviously this is very extreme. So what we can do is we can also bring the opacity of the matte down. So I can bring that down as well, so it affects it less. You can see there, if I just kind of play with that value. So obviously in this scene we don't have a lot of mist or haze very close to the camera, but there's still a little bit. So maybe if we bring this down to maybe even just 10% or 13%. So if I now toggle this haze, you can see, if you look at these objects here, maybe look at the well, you can see, sorry, we need to switch on this first layer. If I toggle that on and off, you can see there is a slight difference in those objects a little further away. So play around with the mist pass, see if you can add one that matches the footage quite well, because you just want that subtle, less contrast on the objects that's further away from the camera. You will see if you look at any object in a scene that's further away, you can see they kind of behind this slight haze, and that's kind of the effect that you want to simulate using this mist pass. So obviously if you have objects that's further away, it's going to be more visible, but for this example, a very, very subtle mist, maybe we can bring this down to even 10, that might just help to integrate your 3D objects into the scene a little better. So go ahead and save your project now, and I will see you in the next lesson.